This film, issued by the United States government in 1942, sets forth the rationale for the wartime evacuation and internment of all persons of Japanese ancestry, citizen as well as alien. The spokesman is Milton Eisenhower, brother of General and later U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower.
When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, our west coast became a potential combat zone. Living in that zone were more than 100,000 persons of Japanese ancestry, 2/3 of them American citizens, 1/3 aliens. We knew that some among them were potentially dangerous, but no one knew what would happen among this concentrated population if Japanese forces should try to invade our shores. Military authorities therefore determined that all of them, citizens and aliens alike, would have to move. Neither the Army nor the War Relocation Authority relished the idea of taking men, women, and children from their homes, their shops, and their farms. So the military and civilian agencies alike determined to do the job as a democracy should, with real consideration for the people involved.
Japanese-American internment, 1941, 1945. No nation can fully understand itself or find its place in the world if it does not look with clear eyes at all the glories and disgraces of its past. The internment of Japanese Americans was a great injustice, and it will never be repeated. President George H.W. Bush, December 7th, 1991. 2 months after the attack on Pearl Harbor, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, giving U.S. military commanders the authority to designate exclusion zones from which undesirable persons could be removed and relocated to resettlement camps. The order cleared the way for Lieutenant General John DeWitt, Western Defense Area Commander, to order the internment of all people of Japanese ancestry. Of the 127,000 Japanese Americans living in the continental United States, 112,000 resided within the Pacific Coast Exclusion Zone. 2/3 were second and third generation U.S. citizens born in the United States. First-generation Japanese immigrants as non-whites, whatever their residency time, were ineligible for citizenship. Ordered from their homes and businesses, entire families, including nearly 30,000 children, over 100 taken from orphanages and foster homes, were sent to one of 17 temporary civilian assembly centers before being transferred to permanent relocation centers constructed by the War Relocation Authority. Life in the camps was difficult. Remote locations and harsh weather conditions, ranging from the freezing cold of Hart Mountain, Wyoming, to the blistering heat of Poston, Arizona, made the tar paper-clad barracks uncomfortable. When the camps began closing in January of 1945, many residents, having lost their homes and businesses, began their new lives with nothing. 35 years later, a U.S. government investigation resulted in the admission that the internments had been the product of race prejudice, war hysteria, and a failure of political leadership. In 1988, President Ronald Reagan signed the Civil Liberties Act, apologizing for the internment and authorizing payments of $20,000 to each camp survivor.
The residents of the new community set about developing a way of life as nearly normal as possible. They held church services, Protestant, Catholic, and Buddhist. They issued their own newspaper, organized nursery schools, and some made camouflage nets for the United States Army. Meanwhile, in Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, and elsewhere, quarters were being built where they would have an opportunity to work and more space in which to live. When word came that these new homes were ready, the final movement began. be fully told only when circumstances permit the loyal American citizens once again to enjoy the freedom we in this country cherish, and when the disloyal, we hope, have left this country for good. In the meantime, we are setting a standard for the rest of the world in the treatment of people who may have loyalties to an enemy nation. We are protecting ourselves without violating the principles of Christian decency. And we won't change this fundamental decency no matter what our enemies do. But of course, we hope most earnestly that our example will influence the Axis powers in their treatment of Americans who fall into their hands.